Okay, let's talk a war
I need to
story
figure out
here.
what we're changing
This is a
up.
Cherokee and a Mustang, but there's no Indians and there's no horses in this thing, right?
Why?
Huh?
Why's there a horse then?
Because I was just trying to give it a little Western flavor here, okay? All right, so we get to tell you a story. This story came from a guy who lives in Canada, and he watched the video that I did the other day on one of our war stories, and he said he was wanting to tell me a war story. And so I read his war story, and I thought it was a good one, and so I figured I would give you guys it. You can see where this is going and all that. Hello. Is my battery dead? 99 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4-liter, 180,000 miles. Right? Yeah, I wonder what in the world that's doing there. That's on the stupid, that's all right. We'll just leave that in the middle of the screen. Right? Look at that thing. Why is that like that? Look at that. Maybe I'll turn it off back on. Anyway, we'll just leave it there. Won't hurt anything. The vehicle was towed in from an out in the country garage, cranks but no start condition, backfired up through the throttle body while cranking. Okay, you got one that's backfired up through the throttle body while cranking. What are you thinking to start with? Okay, so what do you mean out of time? Out of time how? It ain't got a distributor.
It's jump time.
Oh,
It's
jump
got
time.
180,000 miles on it.
That's not a bad thought, really. It's really not a bad thought. Well, let's see where this thing takes us. All right, your leak down test confirmed the head gasket was blown out between two cylinders. All right, let's do that. Why in the world won't that go away?
Because you broke it. It wants you to look at it.
There we go, now we got it. Leak down test confirmed the head gasket blown out between two cylinders. Head comes off and we got it rebuilt. Got a lot of warpage. The machine shop, worked it over and all that kind of stuff. And the, blown head gasket between two cylinders there is what that, is what that's like. So how is a leak down test going to show you got a blown head gasket between two cylinders? Cylinder leak test, like I was talking about yesterday. We got
the other cylinder.
Yeah, it's whenever you put it in this, it's even though you're on top dead center with both valves closed, it's coming out the cylinder next to it. So basically that's, he pulled it off, they verified this. Here we got a problem here, okay? All right, so come on, buddy. Just give me the next slide. I guess my batteries are getting weak. Crank sensor was next. Had an erratic signal on the scope. Now the reason we went back to the crank sensor was after we got the cylinder head put back on there and got everything torqued down and got it all put back together, we're still having the same problem. We're still backfiring through the intake and all that kind of stuff. Right? So we're trying to figure out, we crank it over, it won't start poop, 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 popping back and all this kind of thing. We've seen this here on the same kind of vehicle, believe it or not. But anyway, he goes to, crank sensor's got an erratic signal, went to change it out, found out it was tie strapped in place, the whole down bolt head had been broken, it looked like Jonathan Price had been working on it, extracted a broken bolt and reinstalled the sensor, right? Somebody had used a hammer on it, that's what it was. All right, so the clean signal now, we had that, same no start condition. They looked at the cam signal, it was a really bad signal, so they replaced it. And I got one here that I had looked at on there. Basically, we had the cam position sensor dead as a hammer rest, ain't doing it all the thing. Now, on these 4 liters, you've got this synchronizer here, and you're going to turn this on this 4 liter here. There's a worksheet where you're actually supposed to take this thing out, and it looks almost just exactly like this in this engine here. You're supposed to pull it out, you're supposed to set it up, and there's a special tool that you're supposed to time it with. Well, on the Jeep, cool as all get out, all you got to do is set it up so that you line up the hole in this outside piece with the one in that piece with it on TDC compression, not top dead center, right on the mark. And you turn that so that this outside's lined up with that one. You stick that through there, and that's basically going to get your cam sensor set right. Anyway, let's put that on there for, don't charge any extra for that. Okay, that's what that looks like when you're doing it. All right, so now we have clean crank and cam signal, same no start condition. Now this, whenever you're setting it up with a scope, if you're setting a Jeep with a scope where you got the one that's got the coil pack on it and it's got the the cam synchronizer down there, whenever it's set up like it's supposed to be, you can actually, without doing it the other way, this is your crank sensor, this is your cam sensor if you're reading it on a scope instead of a scan tool, and you're going to dial it in so that you're halfway in between these two Ford Taurus spikes here. Yeah, we always go in here at the same time. Okay. All right, so anyway, so basically what we have, now it's clean cam and crank signal, so this should be good, right? Or should it not be good? All right, we still had the same problem. We had clean cam and crank signals. We're still popping back out the intake. Got issues here. We pulled an injector rail out and we hooked up and cranked and saw 2 injectors were not spraying fuel. The pulse was present, but they weren't spraying fuel. Okay, now he didn't say which 2 it was, but I wonder if it was the 2 on the cylinders that had the blown head gasket, because sometimes heat will destroy an injector and cook stuff in there so that they won't spray. And that may be, but I might need to ask him about that. One way or another, 2 of the injectors were placed. All right, so look what Jonathan was talking about. Oh, goodness gracious, we had a timing chain that had jumped a couple of teeth. You know, can't leave it like that. You know, let's just go ahead and take care of this. So the timing's not quite right, so popping out the intake, pulls it off, found the chain was sloppy and had jumped 2 teeth. Oh yes, this has to be what the deal is. So, very happy with himself at this point that this was the end of the nightmare vehicle that was dumped on him. Puts the new timing chain, new gears on there, still the same thing. We didn't do anything that didn't need to be done yet. Everything we did needed to be done, but we still ain't fixed the dadgum truck. Okay, went over and over and over all the wiring between all the sensors and the computer. Everything was good and sound. What is it?
What's the problem? What's it done?
Won't start. Boop, 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 popping out the intake.
Low fuel pressure. Sometimes I'll make them do it.
Popping back out the intake?
Yeah. I've seen it doing on like Ford Rangers.
Clogged up?
Hmm?
Something clogged
I've
up?
seen foul spark plugs on a 4.3 liter with throttle body injection because it popped back out the intake. Huh?
Them little
Yeah,
Rangers with
converter
the
clogged
8
up.
spark plugs.
What are you saying?
Catalytic converter clogged up or something?
Well, that can keep it from starting, for sure, but it won't typically make it pop out the intake. It'll just make it just won't start. And what were you saying?
The little Rangers with the 8 spark plugs.
Yeah, like her
Yeah,
brother.
if they get low fuel pressure, they'll backfire and everything through the carburetor.
This one's only got 1 spark plug per cylinder though.
Yeah, I know, but still, it's probably still do it.
So it's trying to crank up.
Yeah, but it's popping back out, you know, which means you basically got fuel.
Okay,
Yeah,
That means you basically got spark.
hey, could it be that little crank sensor wasn't set right?
Well, now the crank sensor was back in there. He put a new one in there and tapped out the hole and put a new sensor in there and set it up like it was
I
supposed to.
know, but what if it didn't have that little?
No, this one wasn't like that. Good point. That one, this one here just had one that bolts on there and you couldn't adjust it. But you're thinking clearly. And you've got the little spacer you're supposed to stick on the end of the sensor, put it down there, tighten it up and let it skin that sensor off and it's got you set. Because if it's too far away, it won't run. If it's too close, it won't run, or sometimes it won't run right. First time I saw that, I thought it was crazy as all get out. But anyway, so basically what he did here, now thinking it's got to be a computer malfunction. Right? This one didn't have to be reflashed, you just plug one in. There was a used computer in the vehicle, put it on, still had the exact same no start condition. Now we're completely lost. We just want to set fire to it. Right? Ready to set fire to it. Ready to give up and ship it off to somebody else. We've done everything we know to do. One last attempt. He Googles this problem and read for hours looking for anything that might point him in the right direction, and finally he stuck pay dirt. Maybe the wrong one. 99 and 2000 model year, his coil pack, have specific coils for each year, identical except for the plug, angle, and the internal wiring. They look just alike. You can't tell them apart. And this is where it is. Now, let me ask you this. Where are the companion cylinders on one of these?
What is this?
This is a straight 6. What's the firing order on a straight 6, somebody? 153624, right? Okay, so what are the companion cylinders? What's the companion cylinder for this one? That one. And the companion cylinder for that one is that one, and the companion cylinder for that one is that one. So, which 2 spark plugs does this one fire? Because it's going to fire them at the same time when they're on companions, right? Is this one going to fire these 2? No, it's probably going to fire that one and that one, because it's got some stuff going on the inside. And this one here may fire that one and that one, this one here may fire, you know, that one and that one, or whatever, see what I'm saying? But anyway, 99 and 2000, really difficult to see. Okay, so what we did, we put the coil on it for the right gear model and it fired right up.
Cool.
What would have happened if he'd have put the coil on there first?
It probably ran right.
No, because
I
it
mean,
ran out of
it's-
time.
It would have ran like crap because he had a blown head gasket, he had 2 teeth timing chain jump, he had a crank sensor that was tie wrapped on there and dangling.
That'd have ran perfect.
His question was, how did so much get wrong with this dadgum thing at one time? But then he noticed when he saw the coil pack that it had salvage yard writing on it. The coil pack he pulled off. Okay, so
Somebody tried to piece the car together.
somebody changed the coil pack to start with, hoping that's what was wrong with it, and it still wouldn't start, but they put the wrong one on there. So the last thing he did was to undo the wrong thing they did. You wouldn't think, just looking at it. Now, we put an engine in. Somebody was here, well, when we stuffed the engine in that Jeep, I was thinking, we had this same garbage going on. You remember that? Who was involved with that?
It wasn't the Jeep that we did.
We did a Jeep with a straight 6 that had a coil rail on it, just like this.
That was before I come here.
And it was popping out the intake. It was recent. It was like 2 semesters ago. And I was thinking it was that big old, that ugly Jeep with the flat tires on it.
It was popping out of the intake, but I
Yeah, but it
don't know
wasn't
if
because,
it's
remember you thought it was because of that, but it wasn't, it's because of,
sensor, wasn't
the
it?
sensor.
No, you're thinking about the sensor, but there was one that, and I may be thinking about one that was before your time, but we actually ran into this one time where the coil pack that came on the salvage yard engine was 1 year removed, but it would bolt right in there, but it was hoop, hoop, hoop. And I said, well, let's see if that other coil pack will do it. And we put the coil pack off the original engine and it fired right up. And I may have, forgot what vehicle it was, but it was a 4-liter like this. And we checked the cam timing and all kinds of things. All right, now, we ain't done. We got a 99 Mustang. Ooh, just like yours, except with a different motor. This may do you some good one day, okay? This next war story is a genuine, the names have been changed to protect the innocent, but this is a true war story. All right, 99 Ford Mustang, 4 fuel economy in the mill zone, and it always happens. 3.8 liter, 232, 6-cylinder gas overhead valve. What's that mean? What's OHV?
Overhead valves.
What's that mean?
Yeah.
Aren't all the valves overhead? Unless it's a flathead? What are we talking about when we say overhead valve? Well, it means it doesn't have an overhead camshaft. In spite of the fact that the valves are overhead on those too. But they're basically saying the valves are mounted higher than the camshaft, instead of the camshaft being mounted over the valves. You got it? All right, so 4-speed automatic transmission electronic, 77,000 miles, OBD2 compliant, service engine soon lights on, pulled codes and got a PO 172, bank 1 rich. What's going to make it run rich? We're used to seeing lean codes, right? Just like on this Ranger out here, we're used to seeing ones running too hot, but not ones running too cold that can't, we straighten out easily. But anyway, what we got? We got one that's running too rich. So what? Give me some examples of what's going to make one run rich.
Temperature sensor could be bad, saying it's cold all the time and dump more fuel.
That's possible, yeah.
Yeah, sensor could be bad. Like lying to the computer telling it to run.
Possible. It'd have to be in closed loop though.
Could have a leaking injector.
Be leaking pretty bad, yeah. That's possible. Motor possibilities. Anything else?
I had that black Cherokee, when we first got it, we cranked it up one day and it just kept pouring fuel to the
Yeah.
motor. I don't know if that would have anything to do with that.
Could the pressure, the only thing.
They're able to drive it. They're just black smoking stuff.
What's that little valve on the fuel rail on them things that's got a vacuum hose going to it on the.
That's the fuel pressure regulator, and if the diaphragm's busted in that, it can pull fuel in there. What about your canister?
Yeah.
That could cause it too if it was saturated, right? Remember how Brian was having that problem when he would put gas in his little Kia, and then when you go to start it up for 20 minutes, it wouldn't start? Every time he gassed it up?
That would suck.
Every time he gassed it up, he was gonna be standing there for 20 minutes waiting for it and decided it was gonna start. And you can see Brian sitting here with his, with
So
his
you
dirty
get
glasses
gas,
on.
set the gas pump for 20 minutes, and hold people up.
Yeah, basically, I guess he may have pushed it out of the way or something, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
What? Why
Well,
did he
we
just,
found out what was wrong with it.
why
The,
did he just leave it running while he pumped the gas?
Yeah.
Well, that's against the rules, and Brian's not breaking rules, okay? But anyway, what we're getting here was, he found out the canister purge solenoid was bad, and when you're putting the gas in there, where's all that vapor going? It's shoving the vapor right on into the intake.
Didn't he put it on backwards too at first?
No, I don't even know if you could put it on
I
backwards.
mean,
So
that
there
would-
was something that he put on
That would
backwards when he
sound
was
like
replacing
some
that.
problem.
Maybe, but anyway, long and short of it was, I said, it's $32, we found one on Amazon. He goes, well, how can I check it to make sure it's bad? And so I brought it in here and I says, okay, this little valve here, I said, see if you can blow through it. So he blew through it, and I energized it. I said, now see if you can blow through it while it's energized. If it blows through both ways, you got a bad one. So when we got the new one, we went ahead and did it. Yay. Hey, Quincy, how you doing? We decided that you need a new motor. It's gonna be $8,000. No, I'm kidding. Come here. He's actually working on it, trying to analyze the recording over there, you know, so you know what's going on. All right, anyway, so, okay, so, we're gonna see which way we're going. We looked at the scan tool data stream, because it's got a sensor on the fuel rail, right? Found the fuel pressure was reading 70 to 80 PSI. Will that make it run rich? If it's not supposed to read 70 to 80 PSI, and it's reading 70 to 80 PSI, this may be a problem. Checked it with the gauge, found the same reading, found out it was fuel pressure regulator, figured it was fuel pressure regulator, but it wasn't. So he put a fuel pressure regulator on it, didn't fix doodly nothing.
Could be a pump,
What else could cause it to have high fuel pressure?
a stop gun filter.
High fuel pressure?
Yeah, a bad filter make it have high fuel pressure. It will on a diesel.
Well, that's not the same thing. You're comparing apples to oranges there.
I'm just saying,
What kind of diesel?
I want to 6.0.
With a horizontal fuel conditioning module that's got the pump down there, and there's another filter up there that's, you got a 5 micron filter and a 2 micron filter and all that. We're not talking about 6-liter diesels right now, okay? At the same time, here's where he takes, so he checked it with a gauge to make sure he didn't have something electronic going on, right? All right, now let's see what the fuel pressure is supposed to be. The running fuel pressure should be 35 to 50. Key on engine off fuel pressure should be 25 to 40. All right, and this is from the Ford, you know, website here. So, looked at the scan tool data frame, found that. So next he starts looking for the return line, thinking maybe it was bent, kinked. If the return line's bent, and the fuel pressure regulator is basically wanting to lift off and send it back through the return, if that one's pinched or something's gone wrong with it up under there, you could have an issue with that. Couldn't find the return line. What does this mean? It ain't got one. It's a returnless fuel system. Returnless means the fuel pressure is regulated inside the tank. Anybody remember talking about the Cadillac that had like 60 or 160 pounds of fuel pressure? You know, because of a bad fuel pump. All right. So, uses a returnless fuel system. Equipped with a multi-port injection, uses separately controlled fuel injectors. They're supplied with pressurized fuel from the fuel pump through the fuel injection supply manifold. Fuel supply manifold is controlled by electronic fuel. What? Wait a minute. Hold on. Electronic fuel delivery module, which is enabled by the PCM. Sounds like we may be onto something here, right? All right, let's go there. So, looked in Mitchell on Demand, seemed to say this is a return system. Mitchell on Demand is telling him he's got a return line. Mitchell on Demand has probably fixed this by now. And this is a little while back. I'm looking for help. Is this a return system or is it returnless? I can't tell. I'm looking at my shop manual data and it tells me one thing. I'm looking at Ford and it tells me something else. Well, I'm going to believe the Ford because they know their stuff better than, you know, somebody else. So what besides the regulator would cause such high pressure? Mitchell says 35 to 55 if memory serves correct. This right here. Okay, got back on it this morning. Key on engine off fuel pressure is 70 PSI, coolant readings, room temperature. Gave me a P1237 code. That's interesting. Key on engine off test. Following the Mitchell diagnostic tree led him to measuring the voltage between the power to the fuel pump module and the fuel pump return line. Got battery voltage. Mitchell says it should be less than 1 volt. They're saying I have a short to ground in the fuel pump return wire.
Beautiful.
Got that? So basically, if this thing's supposed to be controlling how fast the fuel pump runs, and the fuel pump's running wide open all the time, then maybe we got some issues right here. There are no tests for the fuel pump return wire. This is what it looks like. Fuel pump driver module is down there. See that? That G400 there. All right. Here's your fuel pump assembly. There's your PCM. So your PCM is going to send commands here for this fuel pump driver module to change the amount of current going to the fuel pump so that it will be able to regulate the pressure electronically. So what do you think's wrong now?
That.
Jonathan's already turning into a skeleton. He already knows what's wrong with that right now.
That module bad.
The module's bad. Okay, we went ahead because Jonathan said the module was bad, and we spent $386. We put a module on it. It's just like it was. It's just like it was. You ever heard them guys? You ever heard these country folks right here say that? When you work on the car, you spend some of their money, and they come back and say, just like it was. It's just like it was. You ever heard them say those words? That's what they used to say every time. Whenever we bring it in there, they say, just like it would. All right. So here we are looking at a problem that's somewhere on this schematic, right? Okay, so your fuel pump, you got to recognize the fact that power and ground are coming out of this module, right? And you got a fuel pump assembly shield. Why do we shield a set of wires like that?
Keep on getting
No, well, that sounds feasible, but that's not why they're shielded. They're shielded so that there won't be any electronic interference causing it to do that. All right. Okay. Diagnosed it with a logic probe. You know what a logic probe is, right? What's a logic probe? You hook it to power and ground. Whenever you touch it, it's to power it burns red. When you touch it to ground, it burns green. You've always got power and ground with you everywhere you go, and usually got a little light on it. They'll shine. They'll see what you're doing too. Probes a fuel pump return wire with a logic probe should show nothing, and each had ground. Unplug the connector under the car just before the gas tank and still had ground. What does that mean? He's disconnected the pump from the car as far as the wires, and he's still showing a ground there
on the pump.
On the wire coming from the pump.
So out of the pump, it's still got ground.
He's got a ground in spite of the fact that his wire harness is totally disconnected.
He's got an insurance.
The pump bad?
The pump's got a short on it. There's a short on the wire leading to the pump.
That's what I said started.
All right. Had ground on both the power and return wire for the fuel pump. Now, why would you show that?
Power and ground from where?
In other words, he's looking at both wires going to the pump. Let me back up. He's looking at both wires going to the pump. This one right here, one of these is showing a ground and the other was showing a ground too. Why would he show a ground on both of them with this unplugged? In other words, he's disconnected it right here, and he's showing a ground on both of these.
On the pump side?
On the pump side, yeah. This is totally out of the loop right here.
Pump's bad.
I mean, but what does that mean? I mean, what I'm saying is, how is the pump bad? How can it be shorted to ground?
2 wires.
Should you see any ground here on either one of those?
What if one of the wires was bad going into, like down into the tank and it was up against the...
Very good. That's exactly what problem we have. But tell me again, why he's seeing a ground on both of these?
Because it's getting a ground from one of the wires is, you know what I'm saying, it's feeding through the pump.
Yeah, good. That's exactly what I was wanting to hear you say. Whenever he's got one of these shorted to ground, it's going through the pump. And he's getting it out the other side too. You got it? It takes a little bit, doesn't it? All right, so he lowers, he puts the ground on power and return wire, lowers the tank, tries to access the wires, the ground disappeared and the fuel pressure returned to normal, dropped the tank and inspected the harness and found nothing. I will tell you that wiring can be really, really screwy sometimes, and you cannot sometimes see what was going on, but you know there was a problem with the wire. And I've actually seen wires that were showing a short to ground whenever I was checking it with my equipment, and when I get the wire out of here where I can just lay it all out and look at it, there was nary a breach in it anywhere. And I've seen wires that were coming out, supposed to be 5 volts coming out of the computer, coming over here to a connector, and I would be reading not enough volts at the connector, But I'd go back toward the computer and I'd say, I've got 2.5 volts here, I got 3 volts here, I got 6, not 6, but I got, going on up to 5. The closer I get to the computer, the closer I get to 5 volts going along the wire. It's crazy stuff. And you can talk to somebody about that and try to explain it to them, and they say that's not physically possible. Put the tank back up, ground reappeared. Pounding on the tank with my hand made the ground come and go. That's interesting. So he initially just pulled the tank out, and he pulled the tank down to see if the ground would go away. So if the gas tank wasn't touching the vehicle ground, he wouldn't have a ground, right? Okay, you replace the fuel pump, the actual column to the fuel pump return wire inside the tank run through the insulation and was grounded to the inside of the upper gas tank. And that's what you were talking about earlier. Moving the tank would move the wire enough to have the problem come and go. Briefly, let me tell you another little short one. We're working at the Ford place, and we used to get all kinds of vehicles over there because when we got something in there, we fixed it. But if you ain't got a book, it's aggravating to deal with. But I got a Chevrolet Cavalier station wagon comes in there, and when you hit the brake, it would stall. And so I got to driving it around. I mean, just hitting the brake, just stopping. You just stop the car, and the car would stall. But I also noticed when I got in a parking lot driving around, and I didn't have no scan tool. I'm just looking at fuel pressure and stuff, trying to figure out what's going on. I noticed that the fuel pressure, when you hit the brake, the fuel pressure would, and it would stall, and then it would come back. And then I would back up, and I noticed all I had to do to get it to do this was back up, and the fuel pressure would drop, and it would come back up. Just backing up. So if you're stopping or backing up, what's the common denominator between stopping and backing up?
Gas is sloshing back.
Sloshing forward. When you stop, it sloshes forward. When you back up, it sloshes forward. So I get down into the tank and I find out that some yo-yo had put a fuel pump on this thing, and while he's wrestling it in there, the sock has come off the dadgum fuel pump. And he says, well, I'm not worrying with this. I'll just go ahead and put the pump in there anyway because it can get fuel, and who cares if you got a sock. A couple of problems with that. First, if you ain't got a sock, any tiny little piece of dirt up in there can go up in there and lock up that positive displacement pump, and then your pump is dark and dead, and you're sitting beside the road somewhere between here and Timbuktu. The other part of it is, on this one, it was sitting close enough to the bottom of the tank that whenever the gas would slosh forward with the amount of gas that was in it, it would oil can and stop up that round hole on the bottom of the pump. And the fuel pressure would drop. Then the gas would slosh back, and the weight of the gas would pull it away
So
from it.
basically, it put like an air bubble at the end of the pump.
No, it was like stopping it up with your hand. It's trying to suck fuel up in there, and the bottom of the gas tank would rise up. Ordinarily, it would hit the sock, and that wouldn't be a big deal. And so it would rise up in that little round pipe, where it was supposed to go into that filter, it would stop it up. So I basically had to put the sock back on the pump. That wasn't really all that complicated, but it was an interesting ride. It's amazing how you can remember that kind of stuff when it's as strange as what it is. Okay, tell me, somebody, what did you learn today?